And now, here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley.
Here we go again. You know, it's funny. I realized that I was thinking about this last night before I went to bed that we really got to work on getting a different intro, because here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley, but we need to have an intro, so we'll have to we got to work on that. But here's our hosts. I'm Wes Tankersley. This is Robert Watson. We are live here on everywhere. How's it going, Robert?
Robert. Wonderful.
Robert's become a co-host. Whoa, what just happened? Interesting. There we go.
Where are we?
You disappeared on my screen for a minute. And now we were back. All right. So anyway, that's on the other end of the world. We're on TikTok here. Thanks for hanging out with us. Make sure that you subscribe, like, follow to get all of the whole thing wherever you want to. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, everywhere else. We appreciate y'all being here. We have Nikki in the chat room there. She's kind of our moderator for the TikTok-y. We do answer questions and things like that. And I want to kind of talk about a few things today too, but this is Monday. Wednesday, we've been going through Robert's book. If you guys haven't checked it out, R is Victorious. What Makes Life Better. Great book. A lot of perspective in there. Great topics that we pull up, and then we kind of riff on whatever we want on Mondays. So that's where we're at right now, and we're going to be talking about a few things. I have a couple things I wanted to address, and then we'll just kind of see where that goes. But last week we were talking about a couple things. If you haven't been paying attention, we're talking a little bit about Ukraine and how in other countries, all these countries that we're supporting and we're helping, and it's funny, we get comments on YouTube, and I like to address these. And there's a guy who said, because we were talking about Ukraine and how we need to take care of our country before we take care of all these other countries first. And this guy responded with, "We are not sending money." Okay, so he says, "We're not sending money." And this is what I think is really lost on me, is I don't understand how people feel this way. He says, "We are not sending money. We're sending aid in the form of weapons and other supplies. We are not sending, or we are sending nothing. Those things, or we are building those things, so they're helping us." So like his point was the fact that we're not sending money, but we're putting these people to work and we're sending them supplies. So is that not the same thing to you as sending money? Like, are we sending them something? Who's paying these people to build these supplies and these weapons and all these things and sending them over there?
Well, I just remember the acronym NFL, right?
Uh-huh.
No free lunch.
No free lunch.
Okay. No free lunch. So he's exactly correct. We are not sending them money. We are, in fact, sending them aid in form of weapons, food, whatever. But somebody has to pay for them. And to be specific, that's the American people. You do not have to get an appropriation from Congress. This is really, really easy for everybody to understand. If you have to go to Congress for an appropriation, that meant they just spent your money. That's it. Doesn't have to get any more complicated. I don't care if you send it to them in paper mache. Doesn't matter. If you have an appropriation, that's because it's our money.
Right.
Now, there is some argument about velocity of money that comes into this, that we're in fact seeding back into our own economy. I get all that. But the fact of the matter is we are in fact sending net value appropriations to another country. Yes.
Yeah, someone says we're sending money too. Don't get it that twisted. And the fact of the matter is that's not even the gist of it. It's like, how do we not understand that supplies, weapons, things like that are costing our country money, because we have to pay someone to put that together to send over there? And
well, because the narratives keep getting so confused in the media, right?
Yeah.
Because it's really quite, as I just said, quite simple. If you have to go to Congress for an appropriation, that means you're spending money. That's it. End of story.
Yeah.
Now, you can fancy it up any way you like. And they used to say, what is it about lipstick on a dog or lipstick on a pig? It doesn't make any difference. Still dog or pig. I mean, come on, man.
Yep.
It's the same thing.
You can
but again, I understand the way you make things better.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Good morning, Robin.
I tell that to people who like to drive Fords, because I hate Fords. You know, you can polish a turd all you want, but it's still a turd.
What is it? Fixed or repaired, daily, found on the road, dead? What is that, the acronym for Ford? Yeah.
We're going to get some fights going on in the chat room over that one, I'm sure.
No, I just laugh because I know all these acronyms. I've driven Fords and Chevys. They're wonderful vehicles. That's not my point. It's just that over the years, people have picked their favorites, right?
Yep. So I just kind of wanted to address that because I think it's kind of funny that a lot of people think these things, and I just don't understand where this confusion is coming from. I don't care if you support it or not. The fact of the matter
Right.
is costing you money, and that money that they're spending on them can be used here in this country to take care of some of the problems that we have rather than taking care of other people's problems. So that's all.
Yeah, no, and I think people also get it kind of twisted too that our foreign aid is really, 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 really small as a percentage of our budget. But the reality is everybody feels, and rightly so, that if you take money out of my people, right? If you take people money away from our people, then you're taking money away from bridges, roads, and things. We shouldn't have bridges falling down in the middle of traffic, that kind of thing. I get it. I get
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Okay, but I mean, we have to look at everything in proportions. It's what are our national priorities, and our priorities right now, at least this current administration is this is what we're going to do with our money.
Right. Yep. So just so you guys know, we do read those comments on YouTube. Sometimes I don't respond to them because I don't want to pick a fight and I don't want to start an argument with someone. But it's interesting how people have that. Next thing that we're going to talk about is the perspective on how they view things. So
Right.
it's funny. I started reading this other book yesterday, and we're reading through yours. But like I always try to read books because I feel like, and I know you do too. We talked about it. Like you have Audible going all the time, and
Right.
you're listening and looking for inspiration, and that's where we find inspiration sometimes. And the book is called "What Makes Life Better." Don't believe everything you think, by Joseph Nguyen. And it was funny because like in the first chapter, right off the bat, it started talking about perspective. Hey Jen, how's it going? Good to see you. If you guys are in the chat room, so we're talking about this book right now, and we're talking about perspective. So that person's perspective on that situation is different than my perspective and different than Robert's perspective. And I started to think about how he was talking about if you polled 100 people and they talked about what was the most important thing in life, you're going to get different answers, right? And it reminds me of
Right.
the Family Feud. How many of you guys watch the Family Feud? It's like 100 people were polled and they were asked this question, and then they guessed what the answers were. And so perspective is something that I think about a lot, like how you can think about what makes your life better. What's your perspective on that, right? And like someone can say, well, it's money. Well, it's cars. Well, it's family, where it's whatever. But you have to think about the world in that way. And your perspective may be different than someone else's. And that's what makes this country great, is that we can all have different perspectives on things and talk about different things. But the problem is that we can't get together and talk about it. If you feel one way and I feel another way, we can't be friends. I mean, that's what really this has come to.
Right. And it's like we don't share the same neighborhood, and that's not really true. We share the same planet. It's like issues about arguing about climate change. I don't even think we should argue. I think we should just say things like, is it important to have clean air? And everybody goes, well, yeah, we breathe it. Oh, good point. How about clean water? Yes, we need clean water, clean air. Okay, can we agree on that? Let's not agree on whether the temperature goes up or down a half a degree. Let's agree that we're all going to make a concerted effort to have clean water and clean air.
Right.
Again, it's back to finding the things we can agree about instead of getting off into the weeds about the things we can't agree on.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody's going to say, hey, let's pollute all the water and pollute all the air. Of course, they're not going to.
Yeah.
And one of the things is when you get off on these tangents, right, you don't realize that you allow countries that are polluting the crap out of the air and water to go scot-free. And if there's industries or things in America that are doing it, then hey, that's something we need to stop, because what we're really giving our kids, I actually have grandkids, you have kids, and we're in a position of saying, what are we leaving as a legacy to our kids? These are the things we can agree on, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing, is like there is so much that we can agree on, but we choose to sit there and think about all the things that we disagree on, and it to me it doesn't make a difference. You and I have conversations all the time. You think one way, I think another way. It doesn't matter. We're still friends. We're still people. We're still people. We're still all on looking for the same thing, like you said, a common goal. Just because I don't
Right.
think that electric cars are the answer to clean energy doesn't mean that I'm wrong and doesn't mean that you're right. Because if you think about like all the things that there are that come along with it, the pollution that is created to make this electric car, there's a better way. So like I'm sitting here thinking, well, why are we putting all our money into something that is just as bad as everything else? And you look at the short-term goal of it, like, hey, here we are, we're driving around that's not putting out pollution, right? It's all about the perspective.
Right. And there's a gentleman in the chat who mentioned that about Ukraine, that his perspective is we need to stand up to Putin and stand up to Russia.
Right.
And that's a perspective on why we need to provide aid to Ukraine. I can go through the list of narratives that are running. For example, one of them is we need to defend democracy. Another one is we need to defend democratic values. It's in our national interest. I can go on and on.
Right.
Because that's my area of research is strategic narratives. In other words, what are we saying that are our perspectives that people can grab a hold of and say, I agree, right?
Yep.
And like you said, it may be your biggest issue is we need to stand up to Putin or we need to stand up to whatever. That's what we need to do.
Right.
Okay, I get it. That's one perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another perspective might be, hey, he's not threatening us. We don't have to worry about it.
Right. I'm just looking at some of the comments here. We got these comments going on, and thank you for hanging out in the chat and going through
good
on
point.
TikTok. It's good to see that conversation going, and we appreciate you guys being here and following and all that stuff. It says we have a better shot at pollution control than we do at climate control. Mother Earth has that task. I mean, yeah, that's the thing, and we have to be willing to do that. I mean, a lot of people don't understand. Even I saw a study the other day that talked about recycling, right? Like recycling is important. Here where I lived in Boise before, and I live in Idaho. But I lived in Boise before, and they had the recycle bins outside, right? And
Right.
in Caldwell, they don't have those. It's not something that they have. So every time my family comes up here from like California or another state, they're like, hey, do you have recycle? Where should we put this? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, we don't have recycle. So like you have the option. Now it becomes, well, are you going to take your stuff and put them in different bags and hang on to them and take them to the recycling center because you don't have a bin to put them in? Well, the reality of those recycling bins that people don't understand is that 90% of what is stuck in there gets thrown away anyway, because if it's contaminated by any means, like you put cardboard, you put aluminum in there, you put all these things. Well, they don't know the rules about what they're supposed to do with recycling. Well, if you put a pizza box inside your recycling bin that had food in it, it cannot be used for cardboard to be recycled. And they don't get that. So once you put that in there, the recycling people look at that as this whole thing is bad and it goes to the landfill. So is that helpful? Is that creating something that you're looking for, or is that just creating more waste?
Yeah, and I think also too, the electric cars, all the stuff that we're trying to do to better the environment. Just remember, when you first start anything, you're not very good at it. Just remember that, so that if we're looking at something, we're saying, we kind of suck at this. We're trying best we can to recycle stuff, but we really suck at this.
Right.
Well, now we've got something we can improve on. I think where people get lost is you got to make that first step and then say, like the electric cars, it's not a fully developed idea. One of the biggest problems is battery, right? Everybody understands that batteries are heavy. They're creating additional drag. You can't charge them, blah, 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 blah. Okay, but the first step is we need an electric car. We need to vet this stuff out. We'd like to run AI in our cars. Well, guess what? That's going to have some problems. So it takes a moment to go through these things. I think the problem all of us have is when government takes an undeveloped idea and decides to mandate it. Right? We don't have this idea fully vetted, but you got to do it. And you're like, why? But that doesn't make any sense. This is not a fully vetted idea. It's not even smart. In other words, guys, leave it in a beta test for a while. It's okay to do something for 5 years to learn what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong and improve on it without mandating it. That's where I think we all kind of push back and say, I'm not sure how much sense that makes.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because a lot of times, like you said, this half-baked idea, there's certain things, all right? So you can look at it and you can go, hey, electric cars are very important, but then you have to realize that they didn't research it like you were talking about. They don't talk about
Mhm.
like all these mining practices that they have to do in order to create this battery. They don't think about where the battery is going to go when it's bad. What are they going to do with it? They don't have any process for that. But then on the other hand, in our government, there are people who are getting paid by these vehicle manufacturers to continue to push oil, right? So it's so corrupt. So on the same hand, they're getting people to push batteries. So like there's all these ulterior motives instead of looking at the process of what it really needs to happen.